I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And this is More The Players, a PopC PlayStation podcast extra where we deep dive into something that little bit extra. Today, thanks to the team at Ubisoft Australia, we are talking about Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. So as I mentioned, big thank you to the team at Ubisoft Australia for providing us the review code of this game, and that means that we get to talk about it. Max, Prince of Persia Lost Crown is essentially like the biggest release of the year so far. We're 11 days in at time of recording. It's a pretty awesome way to kick off the year. Lay it down, Max. What's the dealio?
So, Prince of Persia, the story behind it is you play as one of the immortal protectors of Persia, one of 7. You play as Sargon, who is the youngest of the Immortals. And essentially, the Prince of Persia is kidnapped, and you are tasked by the Queen to go and rescue her son.
And chaos ensues.
And chaos ensues, yeah. Pretty much. As most of the game takes place in Mount Qaf and its ancient city, and you're essentially going through following the traces of the prince to try and rescue him from his kidnappers. Basic overview. So, Prince of Persia, Lost Crown is a Metroidvania, side-scrolling Metroidvania. So
if anyone's have seen any of the trailers, any of the gameplay, the footage that's around, I believe there's a demo out now as well, or if not real very soon. So, first thing you'll notice, it is very reminiscent of the OG Prince of Persia's. We're talking like the old DOS version, which made my heart sing. In that it's side-scroller. It's but it's a little different to that of, say, the Sands of Time, which it is aesthetically borrowing from. But interestingly, like for me, I got the aesthetic of Sands of Time or the Prince of Persia trilogy on PS3, but the energy of the original. I don't know how I can explain it better, but as someone that grew up on that, like it's sang to me beautifully for that. Because you mentioned you haven't played one in forever.
I think the last one I played was like Warrior Within back on PS3. So
PS2, Max.
PS2, jeez. I actually think I technically played the version that came out on 360. So it was a while ago. I think it's a nice return to form to go back to its roots, to relive that, and it works so well as a 2D platformer in that Metroidvania style. With the likes of It feels very reminiscent of like Hollow Knight or Ori.
Yeah.
And they have gained traction in recent history. They're very popular. So, having a known IP in Prince of Persia and taking it back to where it began, I think was a really smart move, especially on the back of their less than ideal development issues they've been having with the 3D remake or remaster that they're doing.
Well, because even from memory, like it was still sort of side-scrolly, like the Sands of Time one, but not as built into its bones as the Lost Crown is. Because I'm glad that you mentioned Hollow Knight, because when you first have a look at the map and you sort of see how it's laid out and it's all sprawling and crazy, like all I got from it was Hollow Knight, and I loved Hollow Knight. I wasn't very good at it, but I adored Hollow Knight. So there's I know I'm talking about like the different influences that we see within the game, but I'm in this real kick at the moment where I really enjoy breaking down things to finding out like what influenced them to create the new whole, which is not a bad thing. I believe, that we are the sum of our influences without knowing where, your things came from. It's absolutely, I love it for that reason. Now, with that in mind came intense platforming. I say intense because there were times where I got a proper angry. How'd you go? Because you're a big sucker for these kind of games.
So I did a lot of exploring. I explored the whole map. I have not unlocked everything. My game completion's sitting at like 70-ish%.
But you have finished the story?
I have finished the main. I have rolled credits. I finished the main campaign. I've got a few side missions to wrap up and a few collectibles. It's really good. So just before we dive into it, in typical Ubisoft fashion, we have a guided mode or an assist mode. Explorer mode or guided mode. So explorer mode is how I played the game, which is there's no quest markers.
Oh.
You get context clues, and you have to go and find your shit.
Oh no, I went the other way. I went the guided because I knew I would get lost.
In guided mode, it shows you blocked paths that you can't get through until you unlock certain abilities. It shows you where you need to go to the next main scenario quest you need to. So I played Explorer mode, and in this game they have this absolutely fantastic mechanic called It's essentially you take a snapshot of where you are on your screen and you pin that photo to your map. So it's like,
so
hey,
it's called like the vision or something along those lines. Where apologies, but as Max mentioned, it takes like a little snapshot of where you are in the map, so you can, when you pull open your greater world map,
they're called memory shards.
Memory shards, thank you. Where you look over there and you go, oh, hang on, that was there. So in true Metroidvania fashion, there is a lot of, as you progress forward, you're going to have to come back. And there are moments where you'll see something, you go, ooh, I don't think I can do that yet. So an example, there might be a ledge that's a little high and you go, I think I'll be able to get to that later. Or you'll see a series of traps and you go, okay, well, that gap is quite large. I imagine I'll be able to get to that later. So rather than when you're looking at your map going, well, why is there this part that I haven't explored yet? You'll be able to look at it and go, I'm not there yet. Okay, no, I get it. Which is really, really helpful. Especially for me, in terms of like, well, because I'm a real sucker for these kind of games in that I explore everything on the path from A to B. And then I'll be like, we can't get through there yet. Meh. And then I have to go, oh, it's a Metroidvania, idiot. I'm like, oh, that's right.
I mean, the game does reward you for exploration. So there's lots of hidden chests around which either give currency to upgrade equipment. It'll give certain upgrade items like ingots, Xerxes coins. There's a few other things. Amulets are a big thing in this game. So amulets give you additional powers, and depending on how many amulet slots you have, is how many you can wear upon your necklace.
Yeah, so consider them like buffs in that there'll be an amulet that will say your melee damage is increased if you're at full health. And there's one that lessens poison attack or, and so on and so on. And as you progress further in the game, you can get them from stores. You can increase the amount of amulet slots that you have available too. I do this because it's designed like a necklace. And you sort of, add to it as you go.
What amulets did you run?
Oh, I ran the one that gave me benefits at lower health because I get my shit kicked in pretty hard. I originally ran with the one that had a little bird that made noises when you were near little treasures. Yeah. There was one that stopped time when you parried, which was really helpful. And I think one of the other ones were like a successful parry also increased your wrath, which is essentially your special meter, which allowed you to do big, like almost DBZ, Kamehameha, think crazy, huge attacks.
So I use you just flat, you get more health.
Oh yeah, no, obviously that was a big one. You get an extra bar.
Parries give health. Gain a 4th attack, 5th attack, 6th attack.
Oh, yep.
And all attacks deal bonus damage in midair.
Okay, for those that may not know, Max is the perfect example of a min-maxer. Somehow, Max knows how to max games. He goes in there. This is why I don't play D&D with him, because he goes in and he goes, and breaks it in terms of, if I put these things together, I'm unstoppable.
So the game has your standard trash mobs, which show up on trash mobs. They show up on every stream, and then they have boss fights. And I found in 90% of my boss fights, I was jumping and attacking anyway. So I'm like, well, let's just fucking do more damage if I'm in midair.
100%.
Because the game's combat system, while simplistic in the fact that it's just you hit square and you hit square and you hit square and you combo, you can, if you push up and square, you can knock an enemy into the air, and then you can juggle them.
I found very quickly that the juggle was the key. So, and many of the enemies that you face are unable to recover once they get kicked in the air. So you can just just decimate them real quick. And one of the other things very similar to that of, I guess, Soulsborne style games is that when if you leave an area and return, they come back. Aside for all the big time bosses, all your smaller mobs will return. So you do what you really want to get that, like, either that swiftness nailed so you can like just dodge them and keep going, or they kick them up and then just, you know, try to take them out without breaking your stride.
Yeah. So there are ranged attacks as well. You do get access to a bow fairly early in the game. The bow's weakest piece, you kind of just use it as a
like stop them before they get to you sort of down, yeah. Or any sort of like traps within the space. So there are many enemies that will like deploy little energy balls or whatever, and you use them to just decimate that. You can upgrade it all, of course. There is a little RPG-ish set up in there.
So it's increased damage, increased quiver size, all that fun stuff. And then, as you mentioned, there are the your bonus moves using your wrath meter. You can have 2 equipped at any given time. There's a fair few to unlock. I was running the healing pool at level 2.
Yep.
And I was running the counter at level 3.
Yeah, so there's 3 tiers to these things, and there's a couple in each. We won't go too specific, because obviously spoilers. We want you to really enjoy it. But for me, I sat between a 1 and a 2. Just the one that was super quick and easy to blow people away, and then one that was like a big honking power damage. It was more of, just say if I was kind of swarmed by, like, there's a couple of mobs that just kind of like spin spears and they get right up in your way. Like, blah, get out of the way. And then I just keep going.
I found at the beginning of the game, the boss fights to be kind of tedious and monotonous. It was essentially attack twice, dodge, attack twice, dodge. Attack. But as you progress further into the game, bosses get mechanics, and then you have to use the things that you have learned throughout your journey in the game to actually overcome them. Unless you're like me and you're an idiot and you don't realize this fact and you just brute force your way through some of the bosses, and then after you beat them, you're like, I probably could have done this and it would have made my life a lot easier. Yeah,
there were moments where, you know, because in true Metroidvania fashion, like, you will collect the power-ups you collect from destroying these bosses, well, then is what opens up traversal, but also opens up various ways that you can fight. When you do have these boss fights, they design them in such a way that you have to implement what you've used. Even in the puzzling systems, like, there was a time that I was just trying to brute force a puzzle, and I was talking to you about it because, you know, pre-release, there's no guides, there's no one I can speak to. The only person I can talk to is the other person playing it, which is you. And I'm like, how the hell do I get through this? And you went, hey, just use this one. I went,
you're like, oh, that makes sense.
I'm like, yeah, okay. And it was one of those ones where I just did it, and I was gunning it, and you're like, just this, and you go, it's like one of the simplest answers is the answer. But saying that, though, one of the great things this game does have is a very wide range of accessibility options. So depending on your skill level, you're covered. There's even an accessibility, like a platform accessibility option. So if you are getting too reamed by an area, you can just, like, it opens a portal where you can go ping ping. Now, granted, you miss out on all the collectibles that'll be in there, whether they're little crystals or coins or power ups, but it will take you from one side of the screen to the other. Now, for someone like myself who has a young son, he's 7, and he is getting better at games every day. However, like, some of these little platformy things just aren't quite there for him. So they would be really helpful for him to be able to continue. Because even myself, I used it a little, like, towards the end as we're getting the push here to try and get it ready for review. So I have about an hour left in the game according to Max. I'm in, like, essentially the last mission. But in order to just get to that last bit, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to dodge this bit because I'm going to get through it for like a pressure of time. And it's a bit I've already ran, so I've already done the collectibles. It was just getting in my way between that door I had to get to. And it is super, super helpful if you were to go down that route. And if you're playing with a child.
One of the big accessibility options that I would recommend people turn on if they're struggling is the automatically face enemy attacks when blocking.
Yeah.
Because if you try and parry or block and you're facing the wrong way, you just get hit.
You get smooshed.
But if you turn that on, it'll automatically face your character to where the attack is coming from, and it'll just, because the parry window is quite tight as it is. So to have it automatically face the enemy for you is a brilliant addition to the game.
And it is one of those things as well, because as we mentioned, in a Soulsborne-esque fashion, parrying is incredibly key in how you dodge a lot of attacks. Like, you can dodge them, however, there are many that have a wide range, like sort of a hitbox, so you want to simply parry them. However, it's not a block. You can't hold it. You only can parry, which... Yeah. Initially, as I'm trying to suss it out, it was making me so mad. Cause I'm like, why can't I just block it? I'm like, oh, hang on, it's block, it's parry, not block. Chill out, Ryan. Just work on that timing.
And it does have the generic like standard attacks. Red attacks means you cannot parry, you cannot dodge it. And then
there is a yellow option which you can parry, and it delivers like a larger attack. It's kind of like a mid-range bump.
Yeah, you normally it's a cinematic a reversal type thing where you use
reversal is the best way to explain, like a counter.
Yeah, counter is the word I was looking for, but reversal works.
Reversal is very wrestling, so thank you, Max.
You're welcome.
Obviously, we talked a lot about the mechanics side of the game here. Let's talk about the story. You touched upon it at the beginning. Now, obviously, we're not going to go into spoilers because we want everyone to enjoy this as much as they can. But have you enjoyed the story with it?
The story was fantastic. I actually really enjoyed the story. Yeah. It took some, it did something I like. It's really hard to talk about the story without spoilers because there's huge.
Yeah.
Like huge. I don't even know if you're there. I don't think you've even experienced it yet. Like the story's really good though. Like, despite the fact that it had we've been talking about super tight platforming, the gameplay's been excellent. I wanted to progress to know what happens next, because like the whole time as you're going through the game, you're seeing snippets of the prince and his kidnappers just ahead of you, and you're like, oh,
there's always that carrot on the stick. It's always like, oh, they're right around the corner.
So it does keep you moving forward really, really well.
Yeah.
And the story goes some places.
So for context as well, like this is pretty this is not a spoil. This is very early in the game, and it's probably in the trailers as well. Is once you get to this mountain area, what's it called? The mountain of
Qaf? QAS.
Yeah,
QAS.
You're essentially locked in this almost time bubble, right? So time itself is really weird. So you're seeing characters that are really old, that like, even though that you just, there's characters you saw prior to you going to there, and you see them later and you go, hang on. So you're starting to realize, in very Alice in Wonderland fashion, everything is not as it seems.
So one of the big driving forces behind the story is that they've kidnapped the prince to take him to the Simurgh gate, which is like the god of Persia, and it's the god of time and space essentially. So the only person who can get into the altar site is one of royal blood. So they've kidnapped the prince to take him to unlock the altar so they can get in and do nefarious things.
Yeah, and again, in similar vein to previous Prince of Persia games, time is a big old dealio here. But so how long did it take you to roll?
Just over 8 hours.
What, the campaign?
Yes.
Damn, dude, you must have just gone past it a little bit.
I did half. I did 50% of the side quests. I did all the side quests that allowed me to upgrade my weapons. Because you can see the rewards that you get from completing a mission. So any that gave me ingots, I was like, yes, please, sign me up.
So I'm sitting at around 16 hours at time of recording. And as you mentioned, I've got about an hour, maybe 2 left. So, that is me kind of getting lost and trying to look down every nook and cranny and search for little secret spaces. And
let me check. It might have been 10. I think it was just over 10, and I would have gotten sub 10 if I didn't spend an hour on a boss that I got stuck on.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, so like, it for me as well, it is very much in a reasonable window of time. As I'm getting older and my time and my commitments are all very different. A game that's like sub 25 hours, the best.
The other thing was, by the back end of the game, I realized that I was strong enough that I didn't need to fight trash mobs anymore, because I didn't need the currency. So I was skipping a lot of the combat, unless there are certain areas that they lock you in the screen until you kill every enemy before it lets you out. But I was finding that I was kind of just okay. So it took me 10 hours 44 minutes.
Okay.
So I would have been sub 10 hours had I not fucked around on that boss.
See, like for me, because the trophies weren't visible at time of play, because they haven't pinged the service, we're playing pre-release, I was like, oh, I wonder how many trophies I can get before I finish this game. So there was a lot of me like, looking for collectibles, trying to get, as many things as I could. Like, oh, what's over there? I'm sure there's something, like, will that get me a trophy? Not that I'm a trophy hunter, but I do kind of like the novelty of finding them when I can.
Well, what was cool is that, like, despite the fact that you are kind of locked in an area, there's so many different biomes to explore. Like,
which is really impressive.
Everywhere's different, which is cool.
So my partner, who's an architect, so she was watching me play it, and she was having a lot of fun just sort of seeing how the world was laid out. She's like, I'm seeing like there's interesting like Egyptian like iconography there, and then you see the very sort of Middle Eastern, Arabic sort of look over here, and then there's like a sewer which looks really like the OG and looks dark and grimy and gritty, and then there's like a forest area and there's an ocean area. So like they're really obviously not, that's very vague, but like it's impressive how they've tied all these different themes together, and each of them have different platforming because of their layouts.
I should also mention that despite the fact that the map is massive and sprawling, there is fast travel.
Oh yeah, fast travel's amazing. The second you realize fast travel, like,
there are altars that you can fast travel to at specific points around the map once you activate them.
Yeah. But we are getting to the point of we're probably going to talk spoilers soon by absolute accident. So we may wrap this up here. Max, what are your overall thoughts and impressions of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown?
This was a great way to kickstart the year.
Oh, yeah.
If you are a fan of games, of Metroidvania style games, or like Hollow Knight, Ori, any of those styles of games, this is a fantastic game and an easy recommend to play, because I had an absolute blast with it. The combat's tight, that platforming is fast-paced, it's difficult at times. It really makes you think of how you're going to tackle it. It makes use of all its upgrades brilliantly in both combat and world exploration. I think it's my favorite Ubisoft game I've played in a very long time.
Well,
it's real good.
I'm going to do you one better. You said it was the great way to start I think maybe the best way to start your year. I'm in the same boat. Like I said, the platforming for me was fun, and it was so much so that even when I was sitting here at this desk, 'cause I work from home, working, and I'm like, I'm still thinking about the sections of the map that I hadn't traversed yet. I was like, oh man, how am I going to get there? Because as you said, it tests your reflexes as well as your intelligence and your logic. And the puzzle, like the puzzles were incredible in that, it's one of those things where there's no real hints. Like you can get hints if you really want to, but predominantly you have to look at it and go, well, how do I do this? And then it supports and rewards trial and error in the best way. And of course, stylistically, I adore it. It's that softer kind of cartoony, not Borderlands in terms of a cartoony, like deep, dark, black lined outside, but it is very simple. It's not ultra realistic. It's stylized. It's cartoony. It plays homage to not just the PS2 trilogy, but the original DOS games, while also showing something completely different with taking those inspirations from your Hollow Knights, etc., those more current Metroidvanias. If you need a game to start your year, this is it. This is the one. Like, it's a really good palate cleanser, especially coming off the back of what we've been playing, like Spider-Man and Baldur's Gate and Alan Wake, like these dense sort of games that really kind of like, you're like, oh, you can switch your mind off a little bit, enough to just properly enjoy yourself, but you're always like learning and moving and pulling forward. Like when you can get in a real flow state and you just like just jump, and next thing you know, you're there. And it's beauty in complicated platforming, but feels weirdly simple. So my partner, as I mentioned, who is not a gamer, she's seeing me do backflips and dodging. She's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, it just feels innate. And like, that's how you know it's really good platforming, when you're not having to really get angry or frustrated at the controls. It just feels perfect.
Yeah. It's got some of the later collecting those Xerxes coins, because you can't collect the coins until you land on flat ground, similar to like the strawberries in Celeste.
Yep.
I was getting strong Celeste vibes by the end of the game. It's like, this is fucking brutal.
Yeah, it's one of those ones, because until you land, you're like, oh, you saw. Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. So be sure to go check it out. Max, I believe it comes out on the 19th.
18th.
The 18th. So coming to all your platforms on January 18th. Max, you and I played it on PlayStation 5.
I think it's available in early access as of the 15th.
Ooh, even better. So 3 days early access.
Depending on what you
pick up the Fancy Pants edition. But yes, be sure to check it out. Big thank you once again to the team over at Ubisoft Australia. We really appreciate the opportunity to start the year so awesomely. But if you have any questions or anything, let us know. Comments below. This is, as I mentioned, a side show from our main show, which is for the players, the PopC PlayStation podcast, where each and every week Max and I break through and chat about everything that is happening in the world of PlayStation, whether it be news, reviews, hands-on, early access, all the different things, all in this personality-driven bullshit show that we do. But it's a stack of fun. We've got a bunch of cool things coming throughout the year as well, and this is just the start. So until the next one, I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And that was Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown.